In The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, you catch wild horses. This is one of my favorite parts of the game, and I'm going to tell you why it works. As you sneak up on the herd, tension starts building. You have to be very patient and move slowly so that you don't scare them away. That tension explodes once you jump on a horse's back. Suddenly you're mashing a button and trying not to be thrown off. Some horses are tamed almost instantly. Others will fight you, and if they win and throw you, they'll go galloping off, and the whole process starts all over again. But if you succeed, suddenly it's you on this horse, this still wild creature, and you have the freedom to go galloping across these beautiful sprawling grasslands. So, why does that feel so good? As a former horse girl, I think I have the answers.
Dolphins and unicorns and horses. They're kind of like a girl's fantasies. Like every girl wants their own unicorn. Every girl goes to their stage where they want a horse.
Gender essentialism aside, horse girls. You probably knew one in grade school. She read books about horses. She talked about horses all the time. Maybe she pretended to be a horse. That was me.
The three-horse cheer. All for one and one for all. The Saddle Club forever.
But the horse girl isn't just a modern goof. It's a psychological phenomenon. Anna Freud, yes, that Freud, was writing about it in 1926. Only she thought that girls liking horses was a phallic allegory, so let's just fast forward. The reason interacting with horses in Breath of the Wild feels so good is that it lets the player experience independence and power. As it turns out, that's what being a horse girl is about. Back in 2011, NPR spoke to Peggy Orenstein, author of Cinderella Ate My Daughter, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the New Girly Girl Culture. Whew. Here's what she had to say.
Horses are a girl expressing her own power through these very dynamic, strong creatures that they're identifying with.
She also says that girls like horses, and by extension dolphins and unicorns, because they're all active, they're all sources of power and motion and transformation. And that's true of horses in Breath of the Wild too. You first have access to horses after leaving the Great Plateau, which is the first area of the game. Catching a horse gives you a new form of mobility and motion. Now you can not only travel faster through Hyrule, you can also engage in mounted combat. Horses transform the gameplay, giving you a sense of power. And the process of catching a horse is a kind of power fantasy, but it's not a violent one. It's actually romantic. And it totally harkens back to all of the horse books and movies that I consumed like popcorn when I was a kid. When Shigeru Miyamoto created the first Legend of Zelda game in 1986, he drew inspiration from his own childhood, exploring the mountains around the town of Sonobe. That inherently romantic childhood fantasy of being a hero in the wilderness is connected to the fantasy of taming wild horses. We see this play out in stories like The Black Stallion and Misty of Chincoteague, both of which are about kids who form bonds with wild horses, and those horses start to trust them and no one else. It's about feeling special and feeling chosen. And I think Breath of the Wild works because your interactions with horses directly evoke that childhood fantasy. And the horses in Breath of the Wild aren't just vehicles that take you from place to place. They have attitude, and your relationships change because the horse will start to trust you over time. It's almost enough to make up for the fact that you can't pet dogs. Almost.
Huge thank yous to everyone who sent me game mechanics suggestions to look at after last week's episode. I have an enormous list now. I know this one isn't as technical as last time, but I hope you still enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe to this channel.